Some of these teams are above, some of these teams are below. Top 3 will qualify through for next season's finals automatically as well. And obviously, there's prizing to go all the way down as well.
Yeah, that's one of like the crazy things about that top 3 slot there security for the next finals. But how are teams going to secure that top 3 slot? They're going to get first a victory route and get 30 points, or they can grab second, 25 points, third, 20 points, and that will trickle all the way down to the 17th slot where you will grab 1 point. Now, also, elims are worth 2 points, which is a little bit new, as we've talked about a lot. And these elims, as they stack up, the points stack up as well, since they are worth an extra point during this FNCS. And again, you know, we've talked about it a lot.
Yo, we need to go back into thingy.
Jimmy,
Push up.
we were gaming that hard. I'm not watching FNCS. If you're watching FNCS, I'm gonna go off.
I'm just watching FNCS. Just got.
In fact, no, I've got 9 minutes. I might as well just watching 9 minutes of FNCS. Jimmy, did your partner crash?
Nah. Oh, did yours?
Yeah.
Oh. I'm actually streaming this one. Where's the FNCS? Oh, yeah, down here.
No, there's an FNCS.
Where's FNCS?
I don't know what this is.
What the hell is this? Oh yeah,
I don't know, but there's grey grapplers here.
Oh yeah, I see FNCS. Is it gonna have like Buga and all that?
Yeah, this is in the east.
Yeah, I'm streaming it right now, like a watch party kinda. So yeah, I'm gonna meet my mind.
I'm not.
I'm YouTube.
Really popping off, and clearly Aussie agrees with me as well.
Yeah, you know, they've shown promise, but not in finals like my trio has, you know. Because I love the fact checking that, because my trio, as of yesterday,
I noticed
in the
as
finals.
I was saying it. That's why I went through the qualifiers and
I'm
the
making
semis.
making sure people know, making sure.
Wow. Okay, so Vivid is bringing the heat. He's decided the finals is
It's
the day that
last
I
day,
will
I
come
have to.
alive, that I won't sleep in, that I'll wake up early, I'll drink the caffeine, and I'll bring the hype. And you know what, Vivid? I respect that, sir. And I respect you. Now, guys, we're getting ready to get into these games. We got to talk about the things that kind of happened yesterday. Coming into today's 6 matches, we saw Day, Miro, and Reverse 2K. They were sitting in first with 165 points. That is a massive buffer coming into these next 6 games. But in EU, we saw Teak's trio come in that first place spot, but it never quite worked out. They never got that ball rolling in those last 6 matches where they really needed to. How do we feel about the top 3, how they may come into these next 6 games? Do you think they're ready? Are you ready?
So, on other regions, a lot of times, in particular EU, that first day, you know, they see the teams stack up, and then after that, things completely change. However, if we compare this season to the last season's FNCS, 3 of our top 5 teams are still in the top 5 who were there last season as well. So we have Day, Miro, and Reverse in first. They were in first last season at this exact moment after the first day 2. We've also got Slacks, Acorn, and Jack who are in second, who were in 5th before. And we also have Commandment, Sended, and Edgy who are in 5th, who were in 3rd this time last season. So our top 5 is looking exactly the same. Now in EU, we saw Kamisei and Teak end up not really performing on day 2. But if history is anything to go by, last season, we saw Day, Miro, and Reverse in that first place slot after day 1. They held it all the way through, picking up the championship. Today, it's a mirror tournament. They're doing the same thing. I think they may be able to keep that first place slot and keep the ball rolling, as long as you don't have any huge upsets.
Yeah, talking about mirrors there, I'd love to talk about their playstyle because they're playing the exact same way that they did last season. And the way that they play is they love those mid-ground layers in that endgame scenarios. Basically, what their goal is to let Reverse go ahead and lead the tarp, stay ahead, while Miro and Day sit in the back. They find these angles on people and they grab these eliminations and these refreshes and basically just bring all these resources up to Reverse so that way Reverse can continue the tarp. And Reverse is very, very good at finding, where he needs to go and keep his trio alive with these really good tarps. And the reason why I want to mention that is because over the course of these weeks, we've seen a very contested high ground by a lot of these teams, and also coming into these finals, there's a little bit of a contention on the low ground as well. So I'm not too confident in Commandment and Tented and Edgy's, ability to bring it back just because of how contested it is. But that mid-ground layer, it seems like they have it for free right now, and they are just mirroring last season, doing exactly what they did last season, and doing a great job of, just bringing it all together and find these elims, especially elims.
Especially that's the thing I want to add here, right? So I've said this stat at the end of yesterday, and I was very, very excited about this. Miro alone, so take out the fact that he has two teammates, he has Reverse, he has Day as well. He has 27 eliminations by himself across 6 games. Now, if you actually look through the leaderboards when we saw them up, every other team except for 2 has less than 27 eliminations, meaning that Miro by himself has more eliminations than 30 teams that have played the 6 games yesterday. So, clearly what Vivid's pointing out, they're getting onto a good layer, and because they're opening that space, they're creating a ton of kind of angles, walls, edits for themselves. They have that great piece control on a relatively free layer, meaning they can look up, they can look down, they can look horizontally across, and really have free reign of whoever's around them. And because they own such a large amount of the retail there, it's free pickings for these guys who are very, very experienced fighters on this region. So this is why they're in the first place slot. And one of the things you said, Vivid, was like low ground looking awfully contested, and we have Commandment, Scented, and Edgy who are really, we would say right now probably playing that low ground position the best, but they're being contested by 2 teams there right now. We have Illist's team who's trying to play that role, and we saw through their qualifier they were performing very, very well, but you're right, it is looking awfully contested on the low ground in any East right now.
Yeah, and that's what I like about that mid-ground layer, because it's not just like one set location, right? Low ground is low ground, that's it. But mid-ground, there are several different layers, so as long as they find a good layer, there are several to them, and you can find your own uncontested layer. But a trio that I want to talk about that towards the end of yesterday actually started to pick it up a little bit and maybe find their groove is Clix, Booga, and Bizzle. They absolutely dominated throughout the qualifying weeks and in their heat. And yesterday they didn't really perform up to that hype. However, towards the end of the day, though, they got a victory royale and they played very, very well. So I'm excited to see if they transfer over that groove that they found into today and maybe make a run for this top 5 slot, maybe even first if they do really, really well.
Yeah, there's around like 20-ish points, 30-ish points, between 8th till 5th, where they're at right now. So, definitely a margin they can close, no problem. We saw in their first game, very much so struggling with Storm Surge, which, is a little bit uncharacteristic because they have such good fighters of Clix and Booga on this team. But we saw, reflectively, instantly, game 2, they came in and they were 1,000 above the first Storm Surge threshold. So it was almost like an instant fix. But the problem with that team was that they were consistently getting stuck in that 12th, 13th, 13th, 15th. That was kind of some of their match history on top of having the Victory Royale too. So despite the fact they were struggling with Storm Surge at the start, they often just committed to high ground way too much when zone started moving, used way too many materials. We saw in one of those games Clix go down back of zone, no mats after trying to take high ground, so leaving, it was Bizzle by himself. He got a few points. Solo, I remember picking up some good eliminations in that game in particular. But still,
the one that he won, actually.
The one that they won as well. There was one that he won as a solo, but then there was another game that they also ended up doing the same thing, first moving too. So it's like, those hype plays, pick up the victory rounds, but obviously it didn't work too much because you've already said it. There's so many teams contesting the high ground.
Just so many trios. And all of them have one thing on their mind. Can we grasp the axe of champions? Can we hold on to this lead? Can we create a lead for ourselves? Can we close the gap? There's so much on these players' mind, but this is it. We have 6 matches ahead of us, and after 6 matches we'll know who the next FNCS Trios Champions is from NA East. Fortnite fam, buckle up, because we about to go on a ride. We're jumping aboard the battle bus, so you know what time it is. We gotta hang out with our casters. It's Monster D-Face, it's Aussie Antics. Gentlemen, say hello.
Thank you, Zeke. And yeah, let's make sure the battle bus doesn't go off without us, because we are calling all of the action today, and we're actually continuing the action from yesterday. Let's not forget, this is a 2-day format. We'll be hopping into game number 7. Ozzy, where we left off yesterday, we left off on a cliffhanger because it was looking like a runaway train for some, and all of a sudden teams have caught up, and now we got ourselves a competition.
Teams are caught up. We've got a big competition on our hand. We have Dame, Miro, and Reverse poised to potentially become the first players ever in NA East to get 2 times FNCS back to back. You can't do it in more dominant fashion than that. We've seen top tier trios stay together since last season. So many of them up there on the leaderboard. I'm so excited to see it, Monster. We have storylines developing. We have big names down on the leaderboard who need a phenomenal day 2 to catch up. But yeah, who's going to be able to take it out of the top? It's so close.
And that's the thing. There's no cutting corners here. It's time to put up and put it all on the line. Booga, Bizzle, and Clicks there, we talked about how they're all of a sudden uptrending. They pulled in a Victor Royale, had a struggle of a day. I think that was the biggest upset, though, I think, coming into this, because they were a fan favorite for all of us.
They were fan favorite for all of us. We also had Zate, Saf, and Stretch. They're coming out of the reboot round. Normally, that's not a team with really high expectations on them, but we know what that storyline is. If you follow NAE's competitive scene at all, you know seeing Zate, Saf, and Stretch in the reboot round all was a giant upset. They won it. The storyline was there. They switched their drop spot back to the Hydro Dam. They've got their RPG, but they're down on leaderboard right now. They're getting contested, and it's almost like that story we saw during the last FNCS at Doom's Domain. But I don't know, if any team can come back and have a legendary day 2, it's going to be that team. They know how to put victory hours on the board, but they're going to have to do it fast. We have 6 more games, and they need to make every single one count if they have any chance at this.
Yeah, and it's their legacy that's on the line here. We're talking about a trio, even as individuals, and their other individual performances have, I believe, finished top 5 in every other grand final or major event up until now. So now that we're looking at this final setting here, you know, they have something to live up to now, right? They have something to live up for. Their win through the reboot round was celebrated through the community, because it wouldn't have been a finals for some if they didn't see Zate, Saf, and Stretch make it here. And now they're struggling, so I feel like that continuation. Today's the day where they can do it, though. They're also a team that they're wild card, right? Known to switch up draw spots, known to do things out of the ordinary. So I'm with you on that. I want to see them step up. I want to see them try something different today.
Well, that's the thing. When you've got the caliber of NA East play as well, we've got 12 games on the board. So teams like Zate, who have put up multiple victory hours in FNCS finals before, they need to show up today, but they can really disrupt the storyline for other teams like Day and Miro and Reverse at the top of the leaderboard. It's not just eyes on that top 5. Any team can come out and surprise you. You were just talking about it then as well. We've got Chap and Zate, both players who have come top 10 in every FNCS final they've played. They're both outside the top 10 right now. Stretch had to win the reboot round to continue his legacy of making it to every single FNCS final ever. So Stretch continues legacy. He made it here, but Zay could potentially lose this one here. It would be a massive upset to not see them at least top 10.
Exactly just that. We have a lot to look forward to as the battle bus is now starting to kick up. Looks like we're all fueled in and we're ready to go ahead and hop on over to it. This is going to be game number 7 of 12, and we're going to be kicking it off here, and the world will start to begin to get populated. Other teams to look out for, of course, are our top 3s. VGen, Agers, Skittles. My pick to definitely do something big here. Slacks, Acorn, and Jock, though, the closest contenders for that first place throne, who at the moment is being sat on by the previous FNCS champions of Day, Miro, and Reverse 2K. So, Aussie, we are going to be in for a world of games and potential upsets and heartbreaks.
I mean, we really are. If you even look at the leaderboard right now, Slacks, Jack, and Acorn, they're on 147 points. We've got our first place, Day, Mirror, and Reverse on 165. Both of them have a victory hour, and both of them have an average placement of exactly 9th. It's the eliminations that separate them right now. Day, Mirror, and Reverse, average elims of 7.5. Slacks, Jack, Acorn, 6.33. So we had Reese talking about there in the intro, the fact that Miro alone has more eliminations than 30 of the teams competing here today. So that performance right now is what's making the point difference, but that's not a lot. That's not what you want to rest on. You've got another team that's playing as consistently as you into the end game in a very, very placement heavy format. You've got to pick up the pace if you want to hold on to that lead, because it's going to shift instantly here today.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to make the comparison of Miro to like Hen's journey from EU. We just watched the EU the finals play out, right? And watched them take this all away. Hen as well, like really started to find his footing coming into the FNCS Invitationals, coming into these more recent big tournaments of DreamHack and whatnot. It's the same for Miro here. Miro really hit the space hard and running when these solo competitions started to spin up, and it was his solo season. He carried that into trios, and now he's continuing on his legacy here, building the story of Miro, and he's done it in such a short time frame, like such a short window. I feel like with every tournament now, once again setting the bar for himself higher and higher. Take a look here though. We have Knight, AV, and Shark here trying to hold down Pleasant Park. They're being contested. We haven't seen them show up as big as we'd like though.
No, they didn't show up in the way that we normally saw. Last FNCS, they were doing phenomenal right up until the finals. The finals was a bit shaky, a little bit unfortunate. They were dropping in that southwestern section of the map, that kind of shantytown logjam area. They decided that wasn't really working for them yesterday, where they were still going, and now they're going to be dropping at Pleasant Park. And we've seen a lot of contention at Pleasant Park across all the regions, but especially NA East. I don't think I've watched a single game of Fortnite this season where it hasn't been at least contested by one team, and it's a drop spot that's interesting because it doesn't have a lot of loot, and it looks like Nine Shark are making their way to the stealthy stronghold. I don't know if they know that maybe there's no team up here or a weaker team based on the battle bus they would have been able to see. I just think they're trying to either get away from Silverback's team, or they're just trying to get a little bit of extra loot because they're a man down and they're not looking fantastic. This is the mental reset, right, Monster? You've had a night to sleep on it. You could have VOD reviewed the games, gone back and watched them, figure out the game plan. So this first game is massive. How do you change up what happened yesterday, or how do you find the same consistency, as it looks like Frist, Bully, and Osp are going to find the same consistency they did yesterday, winning yet again another spawn fight at Steamy Stacks, which means Chap, Dukes, and Threats are out of this one yet again.
That's so big for this trio right here, who's battling their way into that top 10. Let's not forget, if first is out of your reach, there is still top 3 on the line here, as Xset is going to rotate right up to the stealthy stronghold. When you look at their performance, Xset yesterday, bar for bar up against Divine's team, who's contesting them at Pleasant Park. Divine's trio was actually winning the drop over and over. So I like this idea to rotate out early, look for a different fight, maybe play an ambush strategy, something different, but it's already not working. They're down AV here. They're down a member, and we all know what happens. 2v3s are not easy battles to take by any means.
And the team they're pushing as well, Crumble, Nexi, and Mars. Yesterday, they started so strong. They had a 4 elimination 9th place and 8 elimination 3rd place. That saw them, I believe, in 3rd overall after those 2 games. And then everything went downhill, Monster. A 31st place, a 17th, a 32nd, and a 32nd. So in their final 4 games, they got a single placement point. So they need to pick things back up here. They've shown they can do it. They've shown in those first 2 games they have the potential. We've been talking up Mars a lot as a player who just kind of plays the game differently to everyone else. He doesn't play scrims a lot. He plays tournaments and he plays arena. Obviously, if you guys have heard about it, over 300,000 arena points this season. So my man's a grinder, but because of that, he does play a little bit differently, and I want to see what they can bring to the table today, because when they get running, they have the ability to take out victory royales, but right now, the consistency isn't there as we swap over to another team, our 2nd place team, who has had, I would argue, probably the best consistency, not just this weekend, they're in 2nd place, but almost all season. They have been phenomenal.
Yeah, they're just short of a championship title, and that's what they're fighting for right now. It's the pride, it's the reputation, it's just to say you have done it before. It's such a huge accolade to achieve in a pro player's career, and it's the only thing that should matter, honestly. I was going to say it's what matters most, but no, it's the only thing that should matter, is taking home that 1st place spot when you're up here, because you're trying to prove you are one of the best of the best, and that's what Slacks and Acorn and Jack have done here up until now, especially Jack and Acorn. Their reputation, the rapport they've built with one another is, again, something to be looked up to, something to really be admired. Here's another team on the come up, though. Teo, Tabney, and Chimp, dark horses to take this whole thing. They had a strong 2-game start, and then all of a sudden just hit a wall. And if you pay attention to social media, they were really leaning into the whole, the zones weren't something that they were comfortable with. It didn't just go in their way that time around. But I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's a good enough excuse for me. I think it's the pressure of our grand finals and these finals type settings, right? It's the final settings here that really make the difference for some of the new players.
I agree. It is. You've got to have game plans for every scenario. NA East is kind of always, prided for how good their practice scene is, how many games they run. They usually run 6 to 7 games almost every single day of the week, practicing against each other, using custom lobbies to try and get that practice. And if the zones don't go your way, you should know how to account for that. We've seen phenomenal performances from teams that also didn't get zones. Again, yesterday, Centered Edgy Commandment, perfect timing to shine eyes on them. Their victory out came from the game when it went far north into Craggy, and they are a Misty Meadows team. So they did the entire map rotate and managed to get the victory out. And look at the loot here. This is a team that's interesting. I'm not going to lie. I haven't forgotten, Vivid's comments there at the start. He was saying his pick's a little bit better than mine. I'm not going to disagree that his pick looks phenomenal. They're very close on the leaderboard, but Commandment, Edgy, and Centered started yesterday getting contested, which threw off their first games a little bit. They got decent points, but I think it really did kind of throw off their momentum. Now they're back to being uncontested. I really think we're going to see phenomenal things from this team, but they need to step up pretty soon. They're in that 5th place slot. They're over a victory royale down on points, or just around a victory royale. So you've got to imagine, even if they get that victory royale, that means Damir and Reverse have to get a 0-point game. So they've got to step up the pace here.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that they started to get their groove. They really did begin to pop off, pulling in a string of big games, 3rd, 1st, 7th, and then that last Storm Surge was the biggest problem. They fell in 28th place, and that's early, guys. When you really look at it, that is one of the first teams to crumble right as the things are kicking off with the Storm Surge and really forcing players to fight one another. So you want the drop spot for free, but anything can happen.
That fight was at the hands of Zate, Saf, and Stretch. Remember, they were getting emotional. They were getting upset. They came out of their drop at Hydro Dam very near Misty, and I think they were just looking for any team to lay the hurt down on. They found Centered Edgy Commandment. Zate unleashed the RPG. They made it a full 3v3 battle that ended up Centered Edgy Commandment lost that one, and that was by far their worst point game. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's part of Fortnite as well. You got to know who's around. You got to know your rotates and who you're going to run into. And when Zate, Saf, and Stretch are trying to put big points on the board, that is not a team you want to be near. As we see Jamper, Paper, and Nosh, a team that has been relatively quiet, I'd say, over this weekend and yesterday's Games Monster, out of the Coliseum, uncontested finally, so expecting to see some big things from them. They've got that middle map split, and I feel like they were close. They were always around those points. They just didn't get the big games they needed. They have a look at their last 3 games yesterday. A 7th place, a 5th place, and a 6th place. We know how close that is to that prestigious top 3 monster. You survive for 10, 15 more seconds. You're picking up 6 points for 3rd and 5 points for 2nd. That is massive.
Yeah, so big, those points here. Take a look at the quick stat. Acorn Shura was the only team with all 3 players in double-digit elims on day 1. So everyone really spreading out the support. I think coming into it, Acorn was actually the lead, right, as far as all the elims. He was really picking up, kind of carrying the weight. But yesterday seemed like things were a lot more dispersed between the few. And actually, when we talked about Acorn's pop-off in the heats, pop-off in the lead-up to in the qualifiers, it came down to actually Jack, who was on camera at that time. I remember here finding a string of elims. So, yeah, we're watching everyone come together. And this trio, I feel like, again, the last time they had a big chance of taking home a championship title, I think it was around the DreamHack setting just recently in that tournament, and they were contested, and they did not have a good time in it. It was, I believe so. It was up against Zate, Saf, and Stretch here too. So, because they go against each other in these settings. These are the best players. They're constantly meeting here in these final stages.
They fight a lot, and when you got a team that's been going Hydro Dam with Zate's team, Slurpee Swarms isn't too far away, and quite often they have eyes set on each other, even if it's just Storm Surge tags or full-blown engagements. But I'm noticing something interesting here, Monster, that I don't think we've seen once this weekend. Predator's team, I'm guessing they contested Zate, but all 6 of them are still alive. No one went down, so I saw that Zate had the RPG there, so definitely won the Hydro Dam fight as Stretch is going up here, going to try and get a move on into Adam's team. Bread's inside the box as well. Stretch is playing aggressive, and this is how you know a team who's got the caliber to be up there on the leaderboard, but has found themselves down there after day 1. They need to play aggressive. They just can't go for a few decent games, Monster. They need big games, and big games come on the back of big eliminations. 2 points per elim here in this finals format, and that's what they're going to be trying to gun for here. They've already got what looks like, I think, 2 down. I think it's 1 player left here from this team, and it is Bread's up on top, trying to get away from 3 of the best players in NA East.
Yeah, but you and I both know how much risk is involved when you get too, invested in some of these fights. I look at them as emotional battles when they go the distance, right? And then you start to try and do it round after round. Anything can happen. Even yesterday on OCE, we saw plenty of teams that had to come all the way back and pull in a big set of games, and that ended up being the thing that backfired the most, right? Game is going to work best for you.
Yeah, definitely, especially in games that are this stacked as well. As you see, Saf takes some big damage. They're 711 above. They've got 4 points on the board. Yes, it's a 3v1, so, you're tempted to try and go up there and really force that fight, but you coined the best there, Monster. Look at Saf and Zayd's health. They just lost a lot of shield, a lot of health, a lot of utility to close out that last elimination. I think it might be worth it to clear that player out from above them, but here we see Day, Mirror, and Reverse, our first place team, looking like they're getting active here early. This mid-game fight against XMB, Leo, and Ved. You also see Uzi, Animal, and Cease behind this one. XMB and Leo are stuck in a really rough spot between two full trios. One trio of which where we see Damir and Reverse doing this a lot, Monster. We questioned it yesterday. They took a risky fight over near risky reels. It ended up playing out fantastically for them. So just a different playstyle. They're happy to make these big boxes of hard mats and then really use that as a position on low ground to apply pressure on the teams around them and try to pick up those freebie eliminations. They didn't end up capitalizing on that one, but it's good Storm Surge damage. They're only 200 above, and I like it. It's not a desperation box fight for Surge. It's getting in a position of power, playing from the low ground, and then getting your shots out like this to get a free 2 points and then some extra loot. But as I say, free, Day goes down. Reverse and Mirror are going to drop back into the top, and this is why I love that they play it on the low ground, Monster, because they have so much room to work with and drop back into. So even if one of them does get picked up, they can get away from it, as it's Aegis, Skittles, and DJ, the same team that we saw back up this team yesterday with the same playstyle.
My, oh my, look at the teams here huddled up. It's DGen, Aegis, and Skittles, like you said, on the move. Cease there on the other side of things. X and B still up, trying to pull something together. I saw Kaz in the mix. There's so many trios here sitting on top of one another. And let's be honest, this is what Storm Surge does to the lobbies. It forces teams that would otherwise go center to have to wait on the edges for people to come into them so they can take these battles clean and steady. And here's another clean and steady fight happening right now. Scented Edgy are trying to get into this one alongside Commandment. They've actually broken up this trio into two different parts. Illust and Avery seems to be down a member.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is interesting. There's two separate teams in this, but I think they're both missing a player right now as they try to find their way in. And Scented, Edgy, Commandment are playing this one aggressive. If you see someone up on the walls without builds around them, really just taking shots in, they are playing incredibly aggressive. As I try to get a grasp on what's going on here. So it is Aspect and Zuni's is a duo right now. And we also know NPen's still there. So Edgy, Commandment, and Scented are pushing a full trio with another duo next to them this aggressively. Man, this is not something we're used to seeing from this team. They are good fighters. They are aggressive players, but not normally to this extent in the mid game. There's 70 players alive. We're below the Storm Surge threshold. This isn't a Storm Surge motivated fight. This is just how Scented, Edgy, Commandment want to play their games, apparently.
I like this, though. I like coming into day two strong, right? Showing like, hey, listen, we're already at the top. We're coming in with a different kind of push that no one is going to expect, especially the game one when players' nerves are at highest. So I think they're warmed up. I think they're fired up, and their gameplay's proven it. The way they're moving is really proving it. They look like they're operating very, very efficiently.
They are, as we see Damir and Reverse get a really nice little house here. They can farm this one out, build this one out, maybe push through it, or sit inside. I think they're going to try and stay inside. They're close to the edge of third. They could go further center, but then they're going to have to refarm the trees. Anytime you can find yourself a house like this, it's just such a safe spot to set up in. Building out of wood right now, not switching it up for the hard mats, for the metal or the brick. Noticing that mid-game fight did cost Reverse a little bit. He's only got 222 of the brick. Needs to try and refarm some of that back, and here we go. Perfect spot to do it inside the basement of this house. Just making sure no one's lurking inside there. You never know. They're going to try and maybe refarm that material back up, but they're looking fantastic. This is a Dirty Dogs team that starts off. They've made it all the way to the other west side of the map early. They've got their Storm Surge tags, and right now I'm looking at 3 of the teams in the top 5 all so close together, Monster.
Yeah, that's what gets very, very interesting. It's when those big teams start to get next to one another, because the box fights will eventually ensue. And, I look at it more as like a mosh pit. The pushing begins, and then all of a sudden the fight breaks out, right? Everything is big and the field opens up. So that's kind of what it's like when you have all the teams starting to get next to one another. It only takes a couple of gunshots in the air to start really getting things interesting, as Kanata's going to fall there in the feed. Bucky falls. Macwood falls. Oh my gosh, you might have just seen a full wipe unfold here. It is from Crumble and his trio.
I'm just going to say, Vivid, I'm pretty sure that means all my team's got to do is pick up 6 more points. Could be above on the leaderboard. I'm not holding on to that one. I'm not salty that you called my team out. Just mentioning, just thought I might throw it in there. Team's now down, but that's an unfortunate start for Kanata, Macwood, and Bucky. They were some of the favorites coming into this. I definitely would have put them in my top 3 to pop off here today and get the victory. So seeing them go down early in Game 7 is scary, but we saw that yesterday as well, right, Monster? They started off slow and they picked up the pace at the end. I feel like, though, on day 2, you can't start off slow. You need to just be hot the whole way through, unless you're in first place. And even then, with the caliber of players we have, you don't have any games to throw away, as we have 22 teams alive. They were still 5 or 6 teams off even getting a single placement point.
I just saw another notable knock there in the feed. D-Gen gets put down, but not completely finished, not just yet. Hopefully he can get picked up, because if that is the case, 3rd and 4th place might be getting taken out of the competition. If that ends up happening, we will see 1st and 2nd start to truly push away. And Jack, Acorn, and Slacks already putting some stuff together, finding themselves in elimination. That means they're going to be comfortable for the surge coming in. That might just start warning players in a little bit here.
And this zone's going to be an interesting one. It pulled far, far southwest. You can see the new zone is literally touching the storm. It can't go more southwest than what it did. But this is ending on top of the logjam. There's a lot of builds here. There's a lot of material to farm out. And a lot of these teams have to make the big rotate. Everyone's been pushing in from that northeastern section of the map. All the POIs. Look at all those little triangles. You can see them in the distance. But right now, Jack, Acorn, and Slack sitting very pretty down here on what you would probably consider the dead side of zone. But 83 below, Monster, you talked about it. Oh, never mind. 400 above. Never mind. A little bit of a visual switch up there. They are above because they have 2 eliminations on the board. They get to sit down here now. Don't need to take too many tags, but you'll notice that all the players here are setting up on the edges. If you don't follow competitive Fortnite too much, you don't know how the zones work. We're going from 4th zone into 5th zone now. 5th zone is the half zone, as we call it. It has to go half into the storm and half in the existing zone. So you know then it can't be anywhere in the middle. So teams will choose to set up on the edge. That's why all those teams on the northeast don't want to make their way down here, because if they get that 5th zone on top of them, they move for no reason. But if we see a southwest pull again on the half, you better believe the good chunk of the lobby is going to have to make that rotate. They got a little bit of tree cover, but that is going to be a mad dash.
Yeah, and look at this high ground right now. Saf, Stretch, and Zayt here sitting up with snipers and everything that they need. Commandment's going to find Frist in the feed. I'm noticing that Voyu caught Genesis. The Pandush was up as well down there, which means Gabe, Tai, and Sprite might have lost their draw spot contestation at the Caddy's Corner. That was one that was going down big time yesterday. And remember, they were in 7th place coming into this. So, again, zone's going to pop, and it looks like we're in for something interesting.
Not a single team got it. This half just pulled into an area, just pulled far west. No one got it at all. So all these teams have to rotate. Who's going to try and go for the early high ground? I see a team there on the bottom left of the minimap rotating all the way around, trying to get in there early. If they get in early and build up, they can take it, but there's no builds to anchor to, Monster. So that's a really, really big investment you have to make. Do we want to be the team that builds up now and tries to hold this? Because we could win the game, but if we invest all these materials and someone else challenges and we can't fight them off, we're going to lose it as our first place team trying to make the rotate. Again, this is through that Weeping Woods area. They got a few trees, which are going to give them a little bit of cover, but now they're going to be out in the open. DGen, Ages, and Skittles, our 3rd place team next to them. Here it is. All the shots come out right now. This rotate is one of the most important in the game. One wrong step, one wrong tarp, and everything goes wrong for you before you're even into the placement points, as Daymir and Reverse, our 1st place team, are showing up here to play in game number 7. I mean, they're going to have to go down quickly here to not hold on to their lead, Monster. They are showing phenomenal strength here to come out with confidence. They're not looking nervous.
Yeah, no, not at all. You could just tell the little micro plays coming out of Miro there. Turns around, whips a quick couple shots at the team on their tail, pushes them off their lane, and all of a sudden, they get a free rotate straight to the new zone. It's the little things that make a difference, and sometimes that aggression can pay or play into their favor, and that's what Miro really brings to the table as his elims, as his elimination lead over the entirety. I think of all the players, all the teams here in the FNCS have shown up until now.
Knocked. Godku just knocked him. There we go. We've lost him right now. Miro is down. They're in a nice base, so unless we see that finished on, I think that's just a knock, but that is very, very scary for your first place team. We also see that we saw Outcast Goku went down as well there, so they've traded. I think they're out here. Clicks, Bizzle, and Booga in this one. This is what you want to see. Day converting. Looks like those teams clash, so they may have lost Miro in the process, but they've gotten 2 eliminations out of that. Okay, Miro's back up, so never mind. They're just getting easy eliminations on the low ground, but that's going to be risky now. Have you lost a lot of your meds? Have you lost a lot of your material in that fight? And are you making the late rotate? Never mind. They look completely healthy,
back.
Monster. This is scary for every other team in the lobby right now. They are here to play.
I was going to say, it also shows that exactly they're here to play. They're not messing up. And even if they do, they're popping off. The clutch, the follow-ups, it's everything you're looking for in a trio. And on high ground, though, let's talk about it. The legacy that they need to cement some top-type finish here for Zayt, Stretch, and Saf to continue their run of, just performing a top 10 every single time in these big final stages. They have a lot to prove, a lot to put up for.
I mean, 5 eliminations on the board. They're looking good right now. Zayt's got 2 rockets left, so a little bit of power to push down the lobby. 67 builds, so we've seen this team force a lot of high ground takes, lose their high ground late around that second rotating zone, so keep eyes on this. This is not secure by any means. Zayt, Saf, and Stretch are losing their crown as the high ground kings. They have lost it many times in this situation, but you see Zayt, he has learned. He is going a few layers up. He is going another step above, so any team that tries to late retake this, either with a bouncer or building up from behind, don't have a chance. And he's not saving that RPG for pressure. He's using it for damage. That was a double tag into those builds. They're trying to get eliminations right now. They're looking very, very comfortable. And this is what we talked about, changing the narrative. That is a team that is not even inside top 15, but they have the chance at a victory royale, taking the points that other teams need even more. But Damir and Reverse, they have no, it's not even crossing their mind to go for high ground right now, Monster. They are so comfortable down here.
No, this is where they want to be. This is where they like to play. It's the mid and the low ground layers. I mean, we've thrown around the low ground king title a few times, right? Over the last couple seasons, we had Xset running it. We have obviously Scented Commandment and Crew, but let's not forget, Reverse 2K at the end of the day proved to everyone why they are champions and why respect needs to be put on this trio's name. And you know what? When Reverse is up and leading his team, they will earn more placements. The history shows it. The numbers are there to prove it. And he's up right now, so we can guarantee they're making it all the way through. And we might be looking at a good old 3v3, the best of the height and possibly the best of the low.
Miro is just dropping eliminations that we're not even seeing on screen right now on the back of Tough. He's now got 3 right now. This is huge. They have 7 eliminations on the board as we have 9 teams, 22 players. You talked about it then, Monster. We've seen so many legendary 3v3 endgames this weekend. Are we going to see yet again another? The Kings of the Height versus the Kings of the Low. I don't know where Scented Edgy Commandment are in this one. I think they're just kind of pulling around. They are still here. Acorn takes down Dom, though. We might see more than a 3v3. There is a very good chance we're setting up for a 3v3 against teams who need this so much. Yes, Zayt, Saf, and Stretch are down on the leaderboards, but they have pride to play for, and with 6 phenomenal games, you never know what could happen as we drop an entire trio in. Beautiful positioning from Miro there. Gets it to the wood cone. The Harpoon breaks wood builds instantly, drops down the whole trio, and pulls out the big tack shotgun. The shots are breaking out. They're not on the low now. They've come up onto the mid ground because they know there's more players here, Monster. More players, more eliminations.
That's what you want. You want all the points. This is the team that likes to do it just like that. Here it is. All of a sudden, they go from low and a little bit lower, and they jump on into the box. And here it is. Miro's going to follow up. It's onto Crunchy. Wipes him out of the competition. His trio's still here, though. We are still looking at top 5 as Miro finally gets exchanged out. And it is Commandment and Edgy. They step in, and they bring that firepower. They're trying to show us something. I think they're trying to say something about that low ground layer. They push off one of the best there.
They said, hey, you guys went up on the mid ground. We hear the commentators talking about it. They're saying you're coming after our title. Now, we're still down here. We're playing the low ground. We have feet on the ground.
Gosh.
As Scented Edgy, Jack, Acorn, Slacks go down. Day takes down Jack in the feed. Scented converts onto Acorn. We have 3 teams, 8 players alive right now. So it looks like we've got a 3v3v2, Reverse 2K and Day. What a phenomenal performance here. Even if they go down now, they've already done so much here. But Stretch, Zayt, and Staff are setting up for this. Stretch is on the high ground. He's popping the med kit. He's going for the heal off. We haven't seen too many heal off wins here, but does he have it? It's right on cue. I don't know if he got this off in time. He does. Commandment is down there. Well, looks like we might see Scented Edgy Commandment with the 2nd place. Stretch, Zayt, and Saf come out with the victory royale. Monster, we've talked about kind of titles. We've talked about legacies. This team has so many Game 1 victory royales. It is insane. I think we saw them do it 3 weeks in a row during the last FNCS. Now they show up here on day 2, Game 1. Like, man, they just come out so strong.
They always start off so strong, but listen, hats off to Commandment, who had 14 eliminations as a trio. Edgy.
Whoa, okay.
They come up, they pop off. Yes, they had 14 elims. And then our first place team, Dave, Miro, and Reverse 2K, you can't count them out. They were also there. Top 3 is where all the points are.
I mean, you got to think, are they feeling nervous? But they come out on the first game and get a 3rd place. That's more than enough to cement themselves in that 1st place.
Yeah, definitely. But listen, we have more to break down. We're going to toss it over to the boys to see what they have to think about this.
About this, MDF, my brother from another mother, I think you just upgraded the mic and you look incredible. Oh, the game. Oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry about that.
Game.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Vivid. I got you. Absolutely. I'm surprised, right? Especially off the performance coming yesterday. You had Sass, Stretch, and Zayt. They came in with not the greatest of showing, right? This is a trio that came in from the reboot round. And today they're saying, look, yesterday didn't even matter. Let's just pretend it never happened. Because today we're making our mark.
Yeah, you know, and Zayt and Stretch have the record for the highest amount of first game wins in any tournament. They didn't get that today, but you know what? Day 2, technically, you know, it's a game 1 of some sorts, but, you know, going in, we want to kind of check out of our top teams going into the day, you know. The top 3 teams we had. In 3rd place at the start of the day, we had Skills, DGen, and Agers. This game, you know, started off reasonably strong. It wasn't an amazing game. It wasn't a kind of shambles game for them. 9th place, picking up plenty of placement points here, but also managing to get 5 eliminations throughout the entire game. So pretty strong start for this team. Like I said, not that top 3 with a big placement, but a reasonably okay game to keep them moving in that top slot.
Yeah, and I want to, you know, okay, well, there you go. Nice shot coming out of whoever just hit that on the DJ there. Something that I want to talk about real quick, though, is that Zayt, Saf, and Stretch, you know, they got the victory route there, but looking over here, Commandment, Scented, and Edgy actually ended up getting 9 more points than them in that game, so, you know, the elims have been flowing in for them.
Yeah, no, Slacks, Acorn, and Jack came into the day 2nd. Now, these guys really performing, and this last game, you know, we saw Commandment sit edgy. We talked about 14 eliminations. You know, you heard Monster say it there himself. However, these guys went under the radar, picking up 10 eliminations themselves. And if you notice their positioning on the zone, it's gone now, but their positioning was fantastic. We saw all those teams in that 4th zone be super congested in that northeast corner. They wrapped around the south side, keeping away from the amount of teams that were there, giving themselves a really nice position set up for the moving zone.
Yeah, and as we saw there, Miro kind of eliminating a shark so that way he can keep those eliminations per day. But again, we're just looking at it right here. How good they are at working as a team to pick up these in. Look at this. You know, Miro is the one that ends up getting this elim here, but Reverse and Day are right there, right beside him. They do a really good job of finding these elims together as a trio.
Yeah, incredible. And that's one of the things that you're going to notice about these top tier teams. Even right now, Acorn, Slacks, and Jack, they're fighting. Look at the spacing between these 3. They're almost touching each other. They're so close. And when you're in a position where you have a lot of your builds and a lot of enemy builds around you, you have to be careful. You know, you can't be getting too separated from your team, because if you manage to get too separated, you're going to be picked up by someone else at that point. So great spacing. You're going to watch all the top teams when they're in a dicey situation. They're always going to be sticking together so well like that.
Yep. Cohesive gameplay is really important, especially when it comes to team game modes like trios. You want to make sure that all 3 of you are on the same page, making the same edits. You're aware of what your teammate is about to edit, so that way you can get those shots in at the same exact time.
It's so cool to see just like kind of the differences. I would say like that your top trios are coming into this so much more calculated, right? They're running these numbers in their mind like, what do we need to do? And they're executing so well. But now we got to take a look at our standings. We got to see how things are going. Remember, this is a cumulative standings. So after the first game here of 6, Day, Miro, Reverse, they're still holding on to this lead, at least for right now, Reese.
Yeah, because, you know, right now, the teams in terms of 1st and 2nd, which is Day, Mirror, Reverse, Slacks, Acorn, and Jack, this is pretty much the same gap that they had going into this first game of the day. You know, from that first day, they had roughly the same points between each other. So, you know, like Day, Mirror, and Reverse, 10 eliminations in 3rd, and Slacks, Acorn, and Jack, 10 eliminations in 4th. They've pretty much played the exact same game. You know, they're very close in terms of the outcome of that game, although despite the fact their gameplay was very different. You know, we saw Commandment, Sent, and Edgy moving up and overtaking DJ and Agers and Skills there with that 2nd place with 14 eliminations. So that was a really massive game for them, and you know, we've talked a lot about them and their huge ability to get eliminations.
Yeah, and coming out of yesterday, the point differential between Commandment, Scented, and Edgy and Reverse's trio was 38 points. And I believe looking at that leaderboard there, it was around 20. So Scented, Edgy, and Commandment are really making a run for this 1st place slot because they are closing that gap. You mentioned that the gap between Day, Reverse, and Mira and Slacks' trio is about the same. However, we still do have these other trios that are making a climb and making this a race for 1st place.
yeah, and any of the teams that you're seeing here, 16th down till 20th, they are not out of the battle by any means. There's still 5 games left. 30 points for the Victory Royale, plus any eliminations you get on top of that, can move you hugely up the leaderboards. And once you get to that top 10 slot, every single placement above that becomes more and more prize money at the end of these 2 days. So these guys, anything to play for right now, and there's still 5 more games. I'm excited to see how they play out.
Hey, it can still go any which way, right? We could just have one team like Zaf, Satan Stretch. They could just keep winning games back to back and suddenly from reboot round win it all. Anything is possible when it comes to Fortnite. But now it is time to jump into the next game on the day. So let's send it back to our casters to take us in.
Something special watching second, third, and the, of course, first place team going toe-to-toe in that final game. That was incredible. It's keeping the standings nice and close here as we're coming into this next round of Fortnite. This is going to be match 8 of 12 that'll be unfolding here. And again, we just got a small taste of the guys popping off, keeping their consistency from day 1 into game 2. And now new teams on day 2 needing to step up here and again, make themselves relevant. Let themselves be heard here.
Yeah, and this is it right now. This is where a lot of the storylines are going to come out of. Zap and Stretch here at the Hydra Dam, they don't have it uncontested. They need to win this fight so they can go on to have those performances we just saw from them that we know they can. Stretch is going to... Ooh, nice. I like that. If you just wonder what happened there, Stretch actually just talked to the Ghost of Ruckus and managed to purchase one of the blue lever action shotgun. One of the big things about Ruckus not a lot of players know about is once you eliminate Ruckus, you get, yes, that RPG and that legendary heavy assault rifle. You can still interact with him to make sure you want to buy some of the good loot as well. Always selling some variation of a lever action shotgun. It is huge. And Stretch now goes from having no shotgun to a blue lever action. Just, again, the kind of knowledge you need to have on these days in these formats, because that is going to turn this fight huge here as Stretch now gets handed the RPG to see what he can do with it. Breaking down the door to try and find an angle in. I think Stretch knows they're at the back of this one, trying to find a way around the corner. Remember, this is your game number 1 Victory Royale here, so even though they didn't have a huge performance yesterday, if they walk away from Hydro Dam right now, they are taking points away from other teams that need them potentially even more. So this is a huge storyline that develops. If Predator Quits can walk away from this one, walk away with the loot, or Jack Acorn Slacks, our second place team, can get their hands on the RPG, this would be massive, Monster.
And look what just happened there. Zate was actually playing Sentinel, looking out in the distance there for Acorn, Jack, and Slacks for the rotate on in, and he spotted them. And that's why they rotate back, while Commandment and Stretch were trying to close the fight in on Predator and Equits. So the little things that make the difference. And for Zate being on high ground, look, Jack, Acorn, and Slacks, they back off because they saw him putting presence down. That's preparation. That's strategy. As we hop over to another fight. This fight's been going on for 2 days now, for 8 rounds of Fortnite. And who's going to walk away with this one this time around? Chap finally looks like he's actually in the lead here. Their trio's been losing this for the most part.
No, it's such an awkward fight there.
Oh, no.
We saw EU. We saw everything end here on the stacks for EU, but everything's going to start here for Chap's team. He has one build. He is stranded, and he goes down. You said this fight's been going on for 2 days, Monster, but this fight has been going on for weeks and months. These teams have been going up against each other during practice games, during qualifiers. We saw them go head-to-head. I believe it was in qualifying week 1 where we actually saw Bully's team come 9th or 10th place, I believe, to make it through into the heats against Chap's team. So Bully's team yesterday came out of the spawn fights way more often than they didn't, and when they did come out, they performed better than Chap's team right now. Unfortunately for Chap, his team has found its match, and it is going to take, I mean, I don't even think at this point they can come back in any real way, Monster, but I talked about it. That is one of the 2 players here today who has come top 10 in every single finals appearance they've been in. Chap's reputation is on the line, and I don't know if he can bring it back.
Yeah, you need just a string of big games. We're talking victories and everything in between. It will be tough for them to fight for, but again, the thing about the way even the prizing breaks out, you want to fight, right? You want to get those high placing spots, top 15 and above, definitely get that nice prizing bump up. That's where things start to get upgraded for everyone here in the competition today. So this final setting, there's a lot to fight for. Obviously, it's the FNCS Championship belt on the line, right? The Axe of Champions, if you will. Then you have up the top 3 that can get invited to the next FNCS competitive major, which we already know is happening. We saw the roadmap there, and then there's surprising, the big breakdown. So there's so much different incentives. Everyone has a bit of a different story, something else on the stakes, on the line.
You know what I'd like to point out as well, Monster, I think it's kind of flown under the radar. The top 5 teams right now are all teams that played the last FNCS together, except for Bucky, Kanata, and Macwood. They are the only new team on the block, but our top 4 are all trios who played together last FNCS. So any one of them getting top 3 here today, guaranteeing an invite into the next FNCS finals would be massive. If you look at the leaderboard right now, if Commandment Sends and Edgy can get that 1 point that separates them from 3rd and 2nd, that was our last FNCS 1st and 2nd. Day's team coming 1st, Center's team coming 2nd. So this leaderboard is looking so close, and it's showing other players that consistency of teammates, sticking together, building that chemistry will go such a long way. It is not a coincidence that all the top teams right now are teams that have been playing together for multiple seasons.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to bring that up there. That's pretty much the next point, right? Is like, yeah, this region has definitely proven what happens when you build chemistry with teammates. You build up the skill levels, you hold each other accountable, and you not only that, you stick to a drop spot, right? You come up consistently. We've seen a lot of these teams carry these drop spots season after season, and we know season, map changes, we get different, in things introduced, I should say, features, right, to the game. You never really know what's going to come in the Fortnite world, but when you stick with one another, that's how you build up the reputation, and that's how you get the skill to succeed.
And I think what's also even more interesting about Damir and Reverse's team, they're doing it out of a different drop spot though. So right now, they are actually going an entirely different drop spot. Last time their success came out of, over near the Sweaty Sands area, they went Fort Crumpin, they went the area around there, a non-POI location. And that's what built up their respect in the region, where today and yesterday when they said, hey, we're going to go Dirty Docks, no one argued it. No one tried to contest them. So they built up that reputation, but you have Centered Edgy Commandment who have gone Misty both seasons in a row now. So I am so impressed by Reverse 2K especially. I feel like we give a lot of hype to Day and how many eliminations they put on the board, but at the same time, Reverse 2K is the brains of that team, and he puts in so much work and preparation with his competitive pedigree. He's been around since before World Cup on how they play these games. You can't overstate how impressive that is to go an entirely new drop spot on the finals, put it all together, and be in 1st place coming into day 2. That is huge.
Yeah, you talk about him being a part of the scene since before World Cup. We're talking the summer skirmish days, right? I remember the first time he won that big 80,000 back then and prizing. I got him on the podcast. We actually interviewed him. It was awesome, dude. Super humble, really getting to see his perspective. His journey has been incredible. And he was counted out of the community for so long, really not being a part of the scrim community, if you will, right? Being one of those oddball kind of just, hey, he's going to do his own thing. And didn't have, I'd say, the high-level friends to play with. I think that makes a difference, too. That's something people don't really talk about. It's like, when you're training with the best, you're also growing with the best.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know as well the impact that Alpha's had on NA East for the longest time. It really is where some of the biggest pros are, and a lot of people talk about it. The people you associate with, they're really going to help you practice and build as a player as well with that motivation. As we see Clix, Bizzle, and Booga now trying to close this one out here. Justice and Spegu are pinned down inside Sweaty. I believe this is a 3v2 unless I'm missing something. No, maybe that is the trio mate coming up from behind as well. As we've got our quick stat coming in. 24 different players had a sniper elimination on day 1, and NA East record this FNCS. So hearts are being broken, storylines are being written on the back of those snipes, and we saw it on EU as well. We saw the big teams that can hit the big snipes come out on top. I've seen just a highlight reel of snipes coming out of Hen and Chapik's team, and look how well that went for them.
Yes, sir. Those highlights, man. Those snipers, and NA, no strangers to the snipers. Even that last game, we saw Zayt and Sap holding a sniper each individually, which, normally you don't see 2 snipers on the team, but sometimes that's just how the loadout's going to be built together. But as Clix, Booga, and Bizzle right now are really trying to poise up for this fight here, Spegu, Justice, and Goku don't want to take the extended battle. They're backing off. They're playing super shy here, timid to take the fight, and, I mean, for good reason. Clix, Booga, Bizzle, they have a lot of ground to make up.
They got a lot of ground to make up here, and they had a fantastic game yesterday. They showed they can put a victory out on the board right now, I believe. No, Zayt, Sap, and Stretch now after their victory out in game number 1 of day 2 here. That was the team that is now the lowest in leaderboard with a victory out, but previously that was Booga's team. They're in 8th place right now with 1 victory out, just breaking the triple digits total now on 101 points. So they're in 8th place, A top 5 is very doable. A top 3 also potential, but they currently have to double their points to even catch up to first right now. But there is a lot of pressure there. Coming into this one, Clix, Booga, and Bizzler, some of the biggest names in the scene, especially Clix and Booga. They have the pressure to show up and have a big performance. I was talking about it. They came in getting a first place in their qualifiers and a first place in heats, and still none of us as casters and analysts picked them as our favorites, because we know that whatever it is about finals, something just always comes unstuck, and they need to rewrite that story here today. It's their last chance this season.
Ooh, look at this though. Edgy getting tagged up here. It's the second time they enter into Weeping Woods, and they do it with, like you said before, no fear, out in the open, no builds because of all the lights, line of sights that are broken up here. But this time they get punished, so they got away with it in game 1. They don't get away with it in game 2, and that's the thing about Fortnite. No 2 games are going to be the same. Teams are going to mix things up. They're going to try something different, and it's that little bit of, you know, when you choose to go left or right, that pathing, you never know what's going to come out of it.
Never know what's going to come out of it as well, and this is what we're going to see. A lot of teams that are lower down the leaderboard changing things up massively for the top. We're just talking about snipers there as well, Monster. I wanted to point out as well, I was, you know, taking some digs at Vivid, saying what happened to Kanata, Macwood, and Bucky this game. Actually, Macwood and Kanata both got headshot sniped within 10 seconds of each other last game, so not a way you want to start off your I want to say your tournament. It is obviously the same continuation, but as we saw from Zayt, Saf, and Stretch there, a lot of those storylines about teams that come out with big momentum do carry over here. It is the same tournament, but it's a new day. You've had time to mentally reset, and some players come out on top out of that, some players don't, and that is such a rough start for Kanata's team.
Yeah, it's a rough start right now for the champs for the first place. Reverse, Day, and Miro here, who are 100 damage below the surge, and the zone's pushing in, which means everyone's already gone. They need to find themselves a vehicle, I think, ASAP. And wait a second, is this a drivable one? Probably not. Unfortunate, because they got some distance to close here. They need to find a team. They need to put some tags in, as I think I hear or see one on the map. Yeah, something's moving in real quick. There's going to be a vehicle nearby. Miro should be able to hear it. They're trying to poise up to see if they can get some shots onto it.
They need to get some shots onto it right now. They are below the Storm Surge, very far from zone. This is a scary place to be in for our first place team, our reigning FNCS champs. This really is a disaster situation when you're outside of zone. Yes, they're coming in onto more of the dead side, so not too many players holding them, but they need damage right now. Oh, and a big snipe from Reverse. That is huge. That brings that gap down to probably around less than 100 damage they need to get now, and we know how hard NA East pushes this Storm Surge threshold up, and there are 12 players that need to go down, so there is no chance of out healing this. Even if they had the meds, they need to get damage right now, but we know this team can take early fights and they can win them, but they're a little bit wounded right now coming into it.
The best thing about this whole thing is that we've seen Reverse 2K do this before. He did it yesterday when the surge is on. He does it again right now. What a beast to hit the 2 sniper shots. And again, we saw this same exact story play out. I can't believe he just landed that shot. That's crazy.
This is massive. We're just telling the story of how Reverse 2K needs to get more credit on this team for what he brings to this team. He has just saved them. He has just opened up the possibility now for them to take this fight, get this loot, and get them out of Storm Surge. If he does not hit that headshot snipe or that body snipe, they are below Storm Surge with 12 players having to go down in a really rough spot. He has completely saved this game here. Any points they get from now on, I'm going to put it down to Reverse 2K here. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's kept them in the game. He's really extended their life here, an opportunity. And not only that, same for Ospen Bully. He just opened up that whole entire fight to get that trio steamrolled. They're out, and now Frat's left by himself. They might be able to find him out here, as everyone's kind of in a bit of a scramble. They're still trying to understand the situation. Osp team opens up the wall. He gets punished for it. Oh, and they grab it, and that's a quick wipe up, and that's onto Frat. Seems like they found out the solo. Perfect situation to be in now.
And that's so amazing right now. Again, you just absolutely love to see it. I don't know what Reverse 2K has to do at this point to get more respect from the community and the scene as well. He is potentially going to be the first person in NA East, all 3 of them, to win double FNCSs and do it back to back. He is a World Cup qualifier. He has been playing in every single tournament, placing for such a long time. And I still remember, even after they won the last FNCS, Reverse 2K, Day, and Miro announced they were going to be splitting up as a team. Day and Miro went on to try and find a third, and a lot of people didn't even question it. That is how little respect Reverse 2K gets, and I think at this point it is honestly criminal, and there is no way, even after this performance up until now, that Reverse 2K hasn't cemented himself as one of the best players in NA East. Hands down, no arguments. I will not accept any point otherwise.
Yeah, just well-rounded and clutch, you know? It's everything that you need. It's not just like being the flashiest. It's not being the most mechanical. It's playing right when you need to play right, keeping your cool, and just having that intuition to make the best decisions. And so far, he's putting it all together. We're watching it unfold. We're literally watching it unfold. Those sniper shots right there, those are going in the highlight reels. I'm happy he got to hit those. I'm happy he got to capture those because that was big for him. That was big for him.
Any extra points they get now is on the back of those snipes as well. They have 2 eliminations on the board. Their loot is still not fantastic. This is probably the worst situation we've seen them in anyway, but they are still going. We're pushing towards that top 17 teams, those placement points, and they don't need to have a phenomenal game here, but they need to hold on to their lead. Anytime you're in first place, you put so much more pressure on everyone else beneath you, especially when you're in that first place by a decent margin. When you're above by about 20 plus points and a victory royale is 30, if you're getting 10 points and your opponents in second and third are getting 20, you're still in the lead. You need to keep that pressure on as we are going to crown our champions as the most consistent. 12 game formats leave zero argument for whether you crown the most consistent team. That is more than enough to overcome any complaint you have. Headshot snipes, bad zones, bad loot. I don't want to hear it. It's 12 games, and right now Daymir and Reverse are coming out on top.
Ooh, but look at this. Booga, Clicks, and Bizzle, who only have accumulated 7 points out of their game 1, need to do more here. They need to step up. Remember yesterday when we watched their game 1 of day number 1, we saw that they were so far behind the Surge, and it seems like they mixed it up, but now kind of falling back into that groove here. I did notice, though, D-Gen gets knocked there in the feed to Bucky, Kanata, and Macwood's trio. So, again, exchanges between 4th and 5th place teams. They're still in the running for top 3s. Let's not forget. Look, and Kanata's going to finish off Agers, too. So, that's a big engagement unfolding somewhere.
Yeah, that is looking very, very unfortunate for our 4th place team, and that's what these 12 game formats allow, and that's what Trios allows as well. That you're going to see the top tier teams run into each other a lot because they are consistently making these end games. I mean, what a legendary finish for EU. You had 3 of the teams up there right at the very end. You had the 1st place team take out the game 12 victory royale, and that's no coincidence. Thomas HD's team in 3rd place just went down because they were so close to the end game, because these are the consistent teams, and they're going to keep running into each other. Unfortunately, that early game fight from Zayt, Saf, and Stretch has left them a little bit shambles monster, and this is the team that managed to get the victory royale last game. This is not a victory royale loadout.
Yeah, it's not, but we know what happens when they don't have the loadout to win the game. They take the fight, and that's what they're trying to do right now. They're going to hound any trio that they can and try to optimize, I should say capitalize on some of the distraction here. Surge being a big issue right now, and I'm assuming they're going to want to throw themselves in the mix here and look for a box fight. Not for the Surge, but just to force in other teams to bring the focus so they can find themselves an impact elimination. Here it is. Saf goes for the wall. He grabs it. The Dragon's Breath comes out, and someone eats it right there, and that's the quick finish. Out comes the RPG, and they're lighting things on fire physically and literally right here inside the box.
And they've gotten their loot, they've gotten their surge, they've lost Saf in the process. Unfortunately, it was Gabe, Tahi, and Sprite. They managed to push on in, but Commandment, Sense, and Edgy are here. They want to try and get something out of this. They want to get some of the loot, they want to get some of the damage, and potentially some elimination points as well, as Commandment just charged straight into that one. There was no hesitation on that one, as Stretch now gets a big pot out of it. They get their damage, but I was going to say, Zayd and Saf built up a reputation for being one of the best duos and players in the world at playing from shambles, going all the way back to World Cup, but they are very, very down bad right now.
Yeah, but look, they get the half in, half out zone. This could be just enough for them to maintain. Think about it. High ground with the 2-man team is not too bad when you pull half in and you have a little bit of loot to play off of. This could be the saving factor that at least opens up a chain of points for them to break them into top 10. And that would be one of the biggest comeback stories that we can actually ask for. If we could potentially see a back-to-back here, who knows?
I mean, I was about to say they also just got half-half zone on high ground, but we know they don't have the loadout to hold it, but do other players know they might be able to sit up there for a little while? As I see Zayt go down in the feed, though, Miro onto Riversun. I think I saw Reverse 2K go down as well, so fights are breaking out. Miro takes down Riversun, Rise takes down Lazar from Riversun's team, so there are a few trios right now clashing somewhere on this map, and it is involving our 1st place team, as Jack in our 2nd place team goes down, Macwood top 5 goes down. The top teams are falling, but at the same time, they still have teammates up. Commandment takes down Jack, so this is massive right now, Monsters. All the big names are here, and they're all getting involved.
Yeah, these top 5 teams are literally clashing with one another, and honestly, this is great for everyone else inside the top 10. But the fact that Reverse 2K and Miro Day, they're still alive, they're still healthy, they're operating in the mix somewhere, they're not being targeted or put out, and for that reason, they're going to be able to break away here. So we do have to be careful with how good, how consistent Miro has been as Miro does fall. So, as I mentioned that, now that means the entire top 5 standings is starting to break open.
And that's what these teams need. We are now inside top 17. This is where each placement point is going to go out for every single team that goes down. Thank you for running the graphic as well. As you can see, 17th to 4th place will get you 1 point for every team that goes down. Third is that huge 6-point jump. Then you get an extra 5 for second and 5 extra for the victory royale, as Zayt and Stretch are on the high ground in game number 2 here of day 2. They got the game number 1 victory royale. There's no Saf. They don't have the loadout for this, but honestly, I feel like this is the ultimate bluff, right? How does anyone else in this lobby know that they don't have this? The longer they can stay up there and the longer they can make it look like they're a full trio of dominant players, people will not look to go for it, and they can secure more and more placement. This is a beautiful strategy, but it's such an alpha move, right? It's such a Zayt move to try to hold high ground as a duo when you already didn't have the loot to do it as a trio. Zayt doesn't even have shield, Monster.
Yeah, no, they don't have anything, and I'm assuming the knock came from a sniper shot, too, just over-peeking, looking for anything. They have just enough...
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, they almost get disconnected there. Okay, so some people have their eyes on height. They have to be extremely careful here. It's all about sitting aboard the information station here. They need to be hyper-aware of all the other trios and what they're trying to do here. And look at that, Stretch is actually going to hit the boogie down. He's going to try and cut across. Okay, they're going to reposition up, and that means they're situated here. But... those white tags, oh, yup. Of course players are going to be looking up.
I think they just invested everything they had into it. Honestly, it might look like an interesting play, but it's one they had to make, as it's Creo, Avery, and Illis who were going to try and take this high ground, but Creo was taken incredibly low. Illis going for the high ground. We haven't seen this team really up here. We've been kind of telling the story more of them at the mid-ground layers, the centered edgy commandment on the mid-ground, trying to make their way to that ultimate low front side that we know they love so much. If they can get a zone that goes back across, they need to get back to the front side and get onto that low ground, but Centered says, no, I've got the big dragon shotgun. It works just as well on the mid-ground as the low ground, as this team trying to make their way around. Edgy is very, very weak right now, and Creo, Avery, and Illis, they've been around that point of contention. They're in 6th place right now, Monster. A victory hour would really put them in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely, but our 2nd and 3rd place teams are still here. They're still fighting. I'm looking for information bits, though. Where is Day? Where is Reverse 2K? We know Miro's down. They might not be in here, so I think 1st place is absolutely up for grabs right now. The fact that Kanata, Macwood, and Bucky have made it this far as well. They were in top 5 right before this, and they are not even baiting. I thought for a second they were trying to bait some heals here, but no, he's just looking for an elim, trying to find something to open up here.
Center just took down Day, so that is 3rd place taking down 1st, which is massive, but Reverse is still in this, gets the elimination on the Tabney, so they're still in it with some kind of a shot, but I think they have to have been heavily weakened here, as so were a lot of our top 5 teams. We saw Centered Edgy Commandment not looking too fantastic on their rotate unless they got the meds off. We have no Macwood now, as Bucky and Kanata trying to make their way through the low. The one team that I know is very healthy and very much in control is Illest, Avery, and Creo. We also have Acorn and Slacks in there. I don't see Jack, though, so I'm seeing a lot of big team duos here who are going to try and hold on to any points they can get, but who's going to be able to alpha it up as the full trio, as we know that extra 5 points for the victory royale is so huge as Bucky takes down Centered.
Yeah, but it's really going to come down to who can get those elims, man. That high ground team right here, Creo, Avery, and Illis just do not have enough. They only have 2 eliminations. All the points are being taken away down here in these low ground places. Acorn still up, though, stealing away placement points. So is Commandment. Now with every team that falls, placement points are going to be given out. So staying alive here is crucial for chipping away at the standings.
Commandment in 3rd place, came into this one 1 point behind 2nd, gets the minis, gets the bigs, gets inside the old hub. If Commandment can do anything out of this, he's trying to get away. All these walls are edited. They're all pre-edited. He can't claim that there's someone fighting down below, but Commandment's clutching on. He's holding on to these points. If Commandment can even get 1, 2 eliminations, a few more placements, this is huge right now. We are following a solo that is currently in 3rd place, trying to clutch onto this, with 1st and 2nd place being wounded or down entirely. So these points are massive as Commandment comes around the corner. 4 health, no! Hits for the 78, he doesn't get it, but he held on to a few of those placements. Who is still up, Monster? We have Click still in this, we have Creo and Illa still in this. Avery on the backside goes down to a Zervo, though, and Creo is setting up for the medkit heal-off.
A lot of new names now all of a sudden in these final instances here. Rise makes it all the way through with the Vive. I see Trashy in the feed there too. Bizzle up by himself is going to find one out to Vive. He's trying to put some numbers up. That's a solo. He's white tag. One will will be enough for the Siphon, and no, he doesn't get it in time. And now, the final instances, the final clashes. It's a good old-fashioned 2v2 here.
It's a 2v2 and Illis, the firepower drops down, and the firepower he has. We've seen Illis be a little bit quiet this weekend. His team was up there in 6th place, but Illis drops down in the 1v2. It doesn't even go down to the heal-off. Korea was on high ground just for the insurance, and Illis goes down, and the Rifler comes out on top. What a big game for our 6th place team, Monster. I wonder how far that's jumped them up, as 3rd was still in it, 2nd was still in it, but I don't know what happened to 1st. Daymir in reverse. They went down kind of early.
Yeah, they definitely went down earlier than we expected, and 2nd and 3rd made it super far into that. Acorn falling just before Commandment there, and then, of course, Commandment, the fact he even stood alive. I do believe we're going to have a 3-way race up towards the top. It's going to be real close between them, but more importantly, these other guys stepping up now. Illis, Avery, and Creo, those are the guys we're going to really have to keep an eye out on. Ozzy, give me your final words.
I mean, we're going to have to keep an eye on them as well. Kanata, Mackwood, and Bucky have jumped up there. I don't know. I need to hear Vivid's thoughts as well, because him and me are going backwards and forwards on this one. Take it away, gentlemen.
Vivid, thoughts?
I'll see. Your prediction is looking a little better than mine, but I'm not giving up, and neither are Bucky, Mackwood, and Kanata.
Okay, all right. I mean, gentlemen, this last game was insane. There's so much that transpired. I feel like this was like a game of switch-ups. There's so many different things, so many trios we're used to seeing on like certain tarps. We're operating on different tarps. There was people like utilizing double harpoons all over the place. Gentlemen, break this all down for me.
Yeah, so in this game, you know, we've been talking about Commandment, Scent, and Edgy. These guys are normally on this low ground playstyle, as we're about to see. That last game we saw them mid ground, but let's take a look at an absolute signature play here. You notice that Scented on the low ground right now, along with the full trio. This is his prime position. And notice the team above. We see Voil and Pandouche. They're just healing up above, and you can see the particles falling down below, and they're marking underneath the floors why. And why may they do this? One harpoon shot, a second one comes in, knocking down Narwhal into the box to hit a nice big one-pop. The double harpoon slot that these guys utilize is one of the reasons that they can get so many eliminations on the low ground.
Yeah, and as we see him using the Dragon's Breath shotgun here, we know Scented does a lot of aim training, is very, very good at aiming, and using the shotgun, you know, it's one of the shotguns in the game right now that can actually like take somebody out in just one click without actually having to charge it up. And, you know, Scented just puts it to just incredible work here because he just doesn't miss.
He doesn't miss. That's the 3rd time he's been under 10 HP, been one tick to zone, and been able to actually pick up an elimination and get it. He nearly managed to get another one on Zayt in the zone there, so if he managed to get that finished, that would have been 5 eliminations there in that end game. That's such a short period in time. And notice, you're talking about how good he is with his aim and how much he aim trains. There was 3 different times where he hit a big 160 tack just to hit that one big shot on opponents there. So clearly their strategy is very well developed and is very, very consistent throughout the games.
It's just those like micro things, right?
Yeah, micro things. Micro things lead to those big elim points because, as we saw, Scented had 8 of them in that game right there. So he's putting up those elims for his team and making sure that they can rise up the leaderboard, as we can see here.
Wow, I actually thought, I'm not gonna lie, I thought Commandment, Scent, and Edgy would have closed the gap a little bit more over Daybrew and Reverse there. You know, it seemed like they were gonna take it off, but I guess at that point, Commandment, Scent, and Edgy in that most previous game, you know, we saw Commandment clutch up, he ended up 7th. But, you know, they didn't manage to get as many eliminations, you know, 5. Still absolutely commendable, no doubt. But Daybrew and Reverse, we saw them go down earlier on 13th. So they got 3 eliminations, so still managed to claim some points. And that's one of the benefits of being a team who has such high potential for eliminations, is that even if you don't go down, you know, with the best placement, 13th isn't, you know, an amazing placement,